first time in my life, I did something profound and it changed my life. Actually changed everything about my life. And what I was laughing at is the voice in my head that turned this good behavior in the outer world, in the real world, into something negative. Clear as a bell, I heard it in my head. Look how hard it was for you just to return a stupid video. You're never going to amount to shit. And I laughed. That laughter at myself changed everything. Hello, my name is Dr. Doug Brackmann, and I am a licensed psychologist, dual PhD, yes, 2 PhDs in clinical psychology, organizational psychology, which is a testament to how insecure I am, trying to get rid of something I call the imposter syndrome. And what it means to be a psychologist is I did a whole lot of crap I didn't want to do. But this is my origin story. So how did I get here? Why did I kind of land in this very unique niche? And hopefully this niche is something that gives you an understanding, a really deep understanding, that if you've always felt like you're different, if you always felt like there's something, you just feel like you work, see, live in a different world than the people around you. And so my origin, I go back to first grade, and this kind of weird feeling that the rest of the class didn't get, why studying spelling words and multiplication tables was just a waste of time. So also had kind of this achy feeling of impending doom most of my life, and led into a whole bunch of drug addiction and chaos. And it was the early 80s in Pasadena. Grew up in California, Pasadena, and went to London in 1980. A lot of family vacation, went to Piccadilly and Trafalgar Square and saw the punk rockers. And that is me. So yes, there are pictures out there of me with mohawks and leopard skin hair and piercings and the whole thing. But it was a way of actually expressing this chronic discontent with what I saw happening in society and what I saw happening around me, just the hypocrisy. And so I kind of started the quest to figure out who and what I am. And needless to say, 18, I was a high school dropout, living in a car, taking showers at the school gym, trying my damnedest to finish high school. I didn't make it, and actually dropped out and ended up running the streets for a little bit, and very quickly discovered that living in a car is horrible. It sucked bad. It was 1986, springtime in 1986. I probably went into a rehab after convincing a psychologist that I was seeing that my parents were making me see, so they continued to pay my car insurance. And this poor guy, early 30s, young kid, I walked into his office and said, dude, I've got to go to rehab or I'm going to die. And he went, what? I said, I've been doing cocaine, and I was 138 pounds in the scale when I went into the psych ward. It was a locked psych ward. And this was the days before ADD, ADHD, long cord on the kitchen phone, and that was the only way you got privacy. So it was a different world back then. And I had been running and gunning and just running crazy. But went into a locked psych ward, and 10 days in, went to my first 12-step meeting. Walked into my 12-step meeting and just went, holy crap, I'm home. That's what I am. And so it launched into this long-term relationship of trying to figure out myself. And obviously delivered auto parts for a little bit, and then went back into school, figured out delivering auto parts sucked too. And knew I was smart enough to do school, but hated it. Hated the structure, hated the mundane hypocrisy crap, knowing I had to do a whole bunch of stuff that would never suit me. You'll start to hear my personality, and you hopefully can relate to this personality. And finally got through Pasadena City College. I did 18, 22, 24 units all the way through, and just got about 2.5 years of school done in about four semesters, because I hated it. But if I was going to do it, I was going to go all in. And I wound up getting into USC. My dad went to SC. My older brother was at SC. We're alumni, and I'm sure that helped get me in. I'm sure I couldn't get in today. Wound up wanting to be either a dentist or going into pre-med. I actually went in as pre-med. My father's a physician, and thought that was a suitable path for me. Thought about it. I was really good with my hands, really creative, good 3D modeling in my brain, and built a whole bunch of airplanes and stuff when I was a kid. Just loved model building, and was in organic chemistry and hating it. was dating the most beautiful little blonde 19-year-old. I was 21 at the time, 3.5 years sober. She was one of those girlfriends that would go have lunch with her ex-boyfriends kind of stuff and think it was okay. And I was literally losing my mind, young, crazy relationship stuff. So I walked into this guy's office, first time I ever walked into a psychologist's office, and he, brilliant man. I mean, absolutely brilliant man, actually a very spiritual man, still in my world today, believe it or not. But the guy's name was Neil Clark Warren. And Dr. Warren changed my life, absolutely just changed my life. But he gave me a set of homework that taught me about really how much I hold myself back, how I sabotage myself. He gave me a very simple homework assignment on organic chemistry. Got a shoebox full of note cards. I don't know if anybody out there ever had to go through that hell, but you're just memorizing formula after formula after formula, and you have no idea really how they work. No one really does. But you got to memorize them and know when to apply them. And it was just the biggest waste of time. And I felt like the only non-Asian kid in there. And I was just losing my mind. I was just overwhelmed in this relationship. And so he gave me a set of homework about really starting to see my real potential. And he said, you're doing great in these areas of your life, but what is one thing that you do that you know you can do? It's relatively simple, but you just keep putting off. The homework was very specific, and really the first time someone taught me how to observe myself or see myself from the outside. And the homework, I said, oh, perfect. Sitting on the coffee table, here's dates it, 4 days late is a Blockbuster video. And that video was sitting there aching $1 a day or whatever they charged back then. But I always had the excuse in my head, school's more important. And so made the commitment to him. It was a Thursday afternoon. Made the commitment to him that, yes, I will return this video. And he in depth explained kind of the basics of human functioning. And he really taught me about this observer, the way to actually look in at ourselves. What is this thing called insight? And so I go home, best intent in the world. I'm going to return this video. I'm tough enough. I can do it. Come on. It's simple. So I walk through the door, take the video off the coffee table. I wedge it against the door. So the next morning when I walk out, I literally I can't get out the door without it. Open the door, there's the video, throw it on the top of all my books and crap, promptly go down to my car, throw it on the front seat of my car, throw my books on top, look at my watch, and running late for everything, fly to school. And promptly sat there that next morning. Oh, it's Friday morning, no big deal. Sat there all weekend. And then Monday morning, I'll do it Monday morning. But every time I looked at that video, there was this ugh in my body. It's like, and then below off that feeling, come up with some excuse to not do it. And so I started to really watch this system. This system was doing, here it comes, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I get in the car Wednesday afternoon, and it's like, I got to do that on the way home, and I'm hungry. And so I literally, Wednesday night, when I pull in the driveway, look over the road, there's the video. So what did I do? I took the video, this true start, took the video, set it in the center of my steering wheel. So the next morning, Thursday morning, and there's no way I could return it. I had his office was in between school and home. So I had to go there right after class. And so there's no way I could do it in the afternoon. So get in the car, first thing Thursday morning, it's 10 minutes late again. But on the way to Blockbuster Video, this is when the real magic started to happen. I started to observe my thoughts and just the ridiculousness. And I vividly remember telling myself that if I miss the next light, it is God's will that I don't return the video. God's will. Literally, man, I started to go, I think I'm nuts. I think I'm crazy. Start smiling at myself, knowing that I'm going to go return it. And I've got to. I'm not going to walk into this guy's office with my tail between my legs. So the real magic happened when I went into the parking lot. I remember it's on Fair Oaks, it's right on the corner. Pull into the parking lot, take this video, run up there and in the slot. And first time in my life, I did something profound and it changed my life. Actually, it changed everything about my life. And what I was laughing at is the voice in my head that turned this good behavior. I finally returned the video, but turned this good thing in the outer world, in the real world, into something negative. Clear as a bell, I heard it in my head. Look how hard it was for you just to return a stupid video. You're never going to amount to And I laughed. And you can probably see my emotion because that laughter at myself changed everything. That is the foundation. I was 21 years old. I was actually in Psych 100 at the time at USC. It was actually Dr. Frazier, I remember. But we had a guest lecturer come in. We had Phil Zimbardo we did the Stanford prison study. He was old as hell. It was the early, I don't remember, 80, when was that, 89 or something? And I was just in love with psychology. It was like, oh, but that laughter at myself literally was the thing that changed my entire life. And so ever since then, when that got through SC, got into graduate school, and I'm looking everywhere in the world for a graduate school that really would allow me to explore what I wanted to explore. And the university setting, I was pretty clear wasn't for me. I was doing these internships underneath these different professors doing research, which was most of the university style research is all funded, meaning that you really can't do what you want to do. And so you got to publish or die. And so I found a school, actually it's a phenomenal school called California School of Professional Psychology in San Diego. And it was founded in 1968 by a bunch of hippies that were going against the man. So I got in there, and it was 1991, and still sober, 5-6 years sober, and just enthralled with trying to figure out what I am. Anyone ever tell you that they get into psychology to not figure out themselves is lying. I got into it to help people. Yeah, number one is me. That evolved into that year, actually in 1991, an article came out in Time magazine that said, we found the alcoholism gene. And it was the dopamine receptor DR2, dopamine receptor 2, DRD2-A1 allele gene. So they were just really starting to crack into the human genome. And that set the rest of the course of my life. Wound up getting 2 PhDs because of one sentence my father said. I love my dad. He's a great guy. He's one of us. He is driven too. But don't you think it's going to be hard to make a really good living as a clinical psychologist? So that led into 4 extra years of coursework. And driving this is this feeling underneath me. It feels like anything I do is never good enough. It doesn't feel good enough. Another way to say it is everything I do, I could be better. And so that led into a lot of perfectionism and high performance. I mean, I was really nuts with my study, and dual PhD seemed to fit right in with that. My doctoral dissertation was about self-sabotage and self-fulfilling prophecy. And even deeper than that, it was about really shame and how shame and this internal sense of identity. So we have an internal me, and does that match the outer me? And so my doctoral dissertation, and I was working at the Gay and Lesbian Center, a population of, I'm not gay, but I just found the courage of really living a gay life just phenomenal. And some of my best friends were going through, and it was one of the best internships programs in San Diego at the time. It was the Gay and Lesbian Center. And it was during HIV and AIDS. And this was 92, 93, so it was pre-protease inhibitors. When you got the AIDS diagnosis, it was literally a 2-year death sentence. I ended up doing through Ride White program, the AIDS response, which was basically a hospice program for HIV and AIDS, and watching 32, 34-year-old kids dying. It was profoundly changing. But that dissertation, I used this concept called internalized social stigma as a way of really measuring shame. And so this was back in the day. That was 30 years ago. And so Queer Eye for the Straight Guy had just come out. You didn't have the social acceptance happening yet at all, anything like it is today. And so there was still a lot of discrepancy between kind of the internal experience of what it means to be gay versus the external experience about what it means to be gay. And my doctoral dissertation had to look at 2 different areas, both the workplace and the clinical. So I combined those 2 and looked at gays in the workplace. And so it was an internal variable, and it was, yay, hey, I'm gay on one end. Literally, it's something about me that I'm proud of. It's something about me that doesn't make me flawed. I've learned a ton about what it means to be me, and it is a smaller part of me. It's not all of me. It's really integrated into a much more functional, complete identity. And then you have the other end of the continuum, where I found a lot of guys, very nice variance in the measure I created about some guys really feel that they're an abomination to God and that they're going to hell. One of the kids that I worked with in hospice, God bless him, his parents were Baptist, Southern Baptist, and 4 months before he died, mom and dad came to him and literally said, "This is God punishing you for being gay." And just the writhing shame in his last years or last months, minutes of life, and I was there. That was just, profound changing. But so we have an internal variable, kind of positive to negative association with being gay. And then I created an external variable, gay affirming workplaces versus gay shaming workplaces. And that's, you can have your partner to the company picnic, you can have your partner's picture out on your desk, the office is sensitive to it, they're aware of it. It's not something that you stand out for, it's not something that you hide. So it's really kind of integrated into the workplace in a healthy, functioning way. And then you have all the way at the end that homophobic jokes and gay jokes are told in the office. If I found out I'm gay, I would be fired. A lot of military back then to San Diego. So I had this variable of positive to negative association with being gay. The outcome variable was really organizational commitment or job satisfaction. Did you like your job? Did you feel like you were committed to your job? Did it feel like your environment was something that really suited you? And so you looked at the fit then between positive and negative, and they said, "Oh, you'll never find it." Because what I was hypothesizing was that the inner world really determines how much attachment in relation to, is it a match or not a match? And so, yeah, hey, I'm gay. We like you for being gay. It's great that you're here and it's part of you. It's an asset to us. Pretty good attachment. And yeah, hey, I'm gay. It's abomination, obviously, negative attachment. And that's something that I really talked about because this was just as it was starting to really come out. It was okay to be gay. And as people were becoming okay to be gay, their job satisfaction was going down. But my real meat of my research was looking at the negative. Going back to that videotape, that we change things in the outer world to fit our inner world. And we are drawn to an outer world that actually fits our inner world, was what I was trying to go for. And that self-sabotage. And the strongest variance, the strongest association, 0.43% of the variance associated with it, beta weight, was that a negative created the strongest organizational commitment and organizational job satisfaction, even though it was negative and it's something about you, but it fit my inner world. And so it was like, holy crap. And that set this course of action into this field of study about how important it is to really become familiar with your inner world. And the only way to do that is to strengthen the ability to look in. And so if you've read Driven, if you can hear the foundational pieces, and then Driven at the same time as doing all this inner world, outer world, and I began meditating at the time, and I was really getting into this spiritual practices. And by chance, my doctoral dissertation's roommate, Jim Spira's guy's name, his roommate was a guy named Peter Levine. And Peter Levine, this was early mid-90s. He was just really kind of getting into his trauma healing. He had just come out with Waking the Tiger, and I jumped right in. I said, holy crap, here's a way. Levine is talking about trauma healing, about really changing this kind of felt sense of who you are in this world. So it fit right into this connection point of here's what we can do about it to change the inner world. And that's the trauma healing component of it. But what is Driven? Driven goes back to that second grade experience for me of feeling like I'm different and feeling like there's something I am just living in a different world than you all. ADD and ADHD had just really started to ramp up as I was going through grad school, and it was in the 90s, the 2000s, and it was just becoming the label du jour of the day. But the functional MRI really hadn't come out. So functional MRI was probably about 15 years old now, and about every 3-4 years, it gets exponentially better. But as I was working on really building a private practice, working primarily in addiction, long-term sobriety, still sober, 20 plus years by then, and loved it. But the alcoholic personality type, or this addictive personality type, was kind of where I was landing again and again and again, because it's what I was really good at. And we have an inner world that is full of shame and trauma. And so it all started to come together. Wanted to really rebrand myself because I was tired of, I really wanted to get into more of the organizational side of my education. So I started working with entrepreneurs, which are very much addicted, but they're workaholics. And there's a lot of other addictions in there. So I started to really make that connection that, hey, there is a subset in the population, and this was about 15 years ago. There's a subset in the population that really are different. And the functional MRI was just coming out. The ADD research was just starting to come out. And we started to see some real significant differences, primarily in the executive function part of the brain. Like, whoa, wait a minute. That steered this path to me of really diving deep into where we are about. I say in Driven 10%, Daniel Amen, brain researcher out of Irvine, says 3%. The entrepreneurial stuff says 5%. So it's somewhere in that 2 to 8% is my guess. But being driven is not all equal. You look at the rest of my content, I really make that point. But what is the primary difference? What is this thing that we were getting at is really this executive function. And those that don't have the executive function as the primary way of organizing their life. And if you're up on the research now, I think they're up to 9 or 12 different subtypes, and they keep slicing the pie, and largely driven by the meds best suited for the type of ADD you are. I'm not against medication, but it's not something that I really promote because it is particularly for the addicts. But how I got here and why you're watching this video, I was basically hiding in my office in San Diego. Never posted anything, never advertised for anything. It's all word of mouth, booming private practice, working within the entrepreneurial community in San Diego. Wanted to rebrand myself and had been a long-range competitive shooter. And Randy Kelly, retired Navy SEAL buddy of mine, and he was actually my Bujinkan teacher. We were doing some martial arts stuff, and I was doing the keto and starting to play some Bujinkan and go roll on the map with these guys. He was a sniper. And I said, hey, let's go take some entrepreneurs and see if we can figure out how to get them to pair meditation with long-range shooting. And what the hell? And so we started this day-long, I think we're charging $500 or $300 back then. And we were both long-term meditators. He's a 6-degree black belt in Bujinkan, and very much about really understanding how to calm the inner world. And we backed into this thing. It is a tool that is the best teaching tool I've ever found for driven people that have our brain. That is just, it's magic. But we were marketers. We didn't know what we were doing. By chance, a guy named Jason Gagnard and Clay Hebert came to one of my shooting retreats, and I didn't know the mastermind world. I didn't know anything. I didn't have a web page. I was just hanging out in my office and word of mouth, and let's kind of see where it goes. These guys show up, and Clay is one of the most brilliant marketing minds in the world. And Jason runs this phenomenal mastermind. They show up, and they're waiting for the $10,000 mastermind pitch at the end and come work with me thing. And I got nothing. It's great. So they pulled me aside and said, dude, what the hell are you doing? And invited me to go and teach meditation at one of his masterminds. Randy and I go and show up, and I walk into this room, and it is 150, 175 ADD, ADHD driven entrepreneurs. And it was the first time in my life that I truly felt like I was home. And it's like, these are my people. Tucker Max was at that event, and he pulled me aside and said, dude, you got to write a book. I mean, you got some good stuff here. That was 2014, 10 years ago, and the rest is history. So that's how I got here. It is a lot of bumps and turns along the way, but you can see how the pieces of my brain and all of these experiences, I'm very spiritual, very much into the divine, understanding how nothing happens by accident. So you get the trauma healing piece about calming the inner world. Neil Clark Warren, here's a divine providence. 25 years later, I'm watching TV and go, hey, what the hell? That's Neil. He wound up starting eHarmony and had one of our brains, very entrepreneurial guy. And so he really got me. He goes to my parents' church. And so he's been in my world. He's got signed copies of my book and big thank yous and just a dear man. And it's been a hell of a ride. So enjoy my content. Thanks for watching.